material. And let me just make a big confession before we start. Every single point here was penned by Mrs. Tete. And Michael, true to her word, she's not in the screen, but she's monitoring at very close quarters. So she totally agrees with me on all of this one. I had something written and planned, but as soon as I saw her points, I was thinking, this one just makes more sense than anything I could say. So yeah, let's go. So 10 important reflections before you say I do. 10 important reflections. I'll take my time. If we don't finish and we ever have to, I'll share the notes with you. And then you could always look at it. It's really, I think, something that for Ina and myself have become very important. As we look at the flaws in our marriage, we realize that these are some of the things we missed out. And especially for the men, some really important things that you must really take note of. And so as we go through them, I pray that the Holy Spirit will impress upon us to find out in our lives where the gaps are so that we can close them if our intentions are to marry soon. So the very first reflection is, and I think it's almost goes without saying, but I put it at the very top because I think it's really the most important thing. The first thing is know God. Know God. Don't know about God. Know God. Nurture a relationship with Him. Don't be content to just know about Him and that you've had this experience. Look, I was born into Adventism. I knew nothing but Adventism. But you get to this age and then almost everything in the Bible, when you hear it, is a repetition to you because you've been so schooled in it. But that does not qualify you to say, I know God. You know about Him. Knowing God means that you have a relationship with Him. Knowing God means that after you have the relationship with Him, you are committed to be submitted to Him. It means as long as God says it and you know about it and you find out about it, you will make every effort to change yourself. And this is where the crux of don't be unequally yoked comes from. When we talk about being unequally yoked, too many Adventists think about the fact that it means marrying another Adventist. It's possible to actually meet devils in your own church and be unequally yoked in your own church, marrying someone in your own church. Find someone who knows God, is yielded to God, is totally submitted to God, is without doubt committed to live their lives so that Jesus is Lord, praised and worshiped. Because halfway through that marriage, if anything goes wrong and they are brought under the correction of the Holy Spirit, they will yield and they will change. If you marry someone who is not submitted to God, and you yourself are not submitted to God, either or end. That's a marriage where you're unequally yoked because you all don't have the same values. If one person says, look, I'm a good Christian and I'm going to do my best, and the other person says, no, I choose to be led by God, right there you've got a case of being unequally yoked. And I know that it sounds very harsh and very painful, but it's the truth. If you don't have the same values about how Jesus plays a role in your lives, you could be in very dire trouble. And so, young ladies, when you're looking for a young man, look for a young man who is totally subservient to Jesus Christ. And you must find evidence of him desiring change because he has been convicted by the word of God. And vice versa too for the young man seeking. Number two, discover who you are, your true self. Get to know who you really are. Almost everybody has this conversation with themselves and they are aware of that self that lays hidden. Then the self they present to the world, the one that they want everybody to see. And I'm not talking from notes that I've read. Each of these points, believe you me, I'm living them and I've lived them and I've struggled with it and I've dealt with my faults and my wrongs, and I'm still dealing with some of them. So when I say get to know yourself, I'm not talking about what your name is, where you were born, and things like that. I'm talking about who are you when all the lights are off? Who are you when you're with yourself alone? What do you become when you travel out of Ghana and nobody knows you there? What do you do? Who are you? You must know that person. You must know that person as well as you know everyone else. In fact, better. There are so many people who surprise themselves. When you're going into marriage, you cannot afford those kind of luxuries. You must know who you are. Know your temperament. How does your temperament interact with other temperament? For those who are more advanced, where the temperaments have shifted, and if we had more time, I'd have asked Ina to probably share a little of that with us. But at least for the basic ones, if you are choleric, what does that mean if you're married to someone who's phlegmatic? If you're married to someone who all her life has had a low self-esteem of herself, and you have always been confident, and you marry her, and you keep making certain statements that constantly put her down, where do you want the marriage to go? So know yourself, and don't just know yourself, but understand how you must interact, or how you personally interact with other temperaments. So begin with first understanding what the temperaments are: the choleric, the sanguines, now the phlegmatics, and then let me just make a big hello.
Yeah, please, we can hear you.
Okay, I thought I heard someone ask the question. Sorry. So find out how, and these days we are being told that we are not purely one temperament, that we are several temperaments, there you need to know which one is dominant, which ones are, subservient to the dominant ones, which one shows up in stress, which one are you when you are relaxed, who are you when you're at home, who are you when you're at the office, because we show up different, most of my life, I always thought I was largely like sanguine melancholy. And recently at work, we did some work that showed that I actually have some serious choleric somewhere hiding there. All my life, if you had told me I was choleric, I would have said it's a big lie. But as my work environment changed and as I got more responsibility, it looks like just being results oriented just somehow pushed me to that space without knowing it. And sometimes I bring that home. And my children are not my colleagues in the office. My wife is not my CFO, or is she's my wife. So you need to know yourself and how you show up when you're stressed, so that you can bring the best self into your marriage. Or else you will bring this temperament that will just batter your wife into the ground and you'll destroy her. So know who you are, know what your temperaments are. Know what it is like with you when you are angry. Know what it's like with you when you are sad. How do you carry yourself when you are broke? Is everybody your enemy? Do you start beating people? Do you start lashing out? Are you only happy when you have got money in your pocket? Know yourself so that you do not start fights. And when you know yourself, you can begin to actually see the fights long before they come and even stop them. You can start to bring down a lot of the tension without necessarily coming to them, because you know who you are. Know who you are. Discover who you truly are. The third thing, marriage must be understood. Must have knowledge and understanding about marriage. The institution wasn't crafted in the minds of men. It wasn't something that people sat in some courts and drew up. That's one of the interesting things. No matter how far you go or what you do, you'll find out that when it comes to the 10 Commandments or when it comes to marriage, humans are still struggling to understand how God came up with all of these rules, because never in a million years would we have thought about it ourselves. If this didn't originate in the mind of man, but in the mind of God, should we not go to God to understand fully what it is? When God says, and so a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave, does it mean just a man? Does it mean that the woman can continue to stay? Or when he says leave and cleave, what does he mean by cleaving? What does it mean when he says we are one flesh? What does the Bible mean when he talks about that relationship mirroring the relationship between Christ and the church? Why is it so important to him that we understand the whole marriage conversation? What does marriage really mean? What was God looking for when he wanted marriage? Today, our culture has set different standards and criteria for it, but there has to be one which is God's standard. And God's standard transcends culture, it transcends personal norms, it transcends church conventions, it transcends all of that. So, for example, when the two of you decide that you want to get married and you come across a social norm that totally destabilizes your marriage, what do you do? How do you do it? What do you say? Who do you go to? Understanding what marriage meant in the mind of God will allow you to come to this problem with a lot more effectiveness and tools than coming to it with our human understanding. And the long list and statistics on divorce are evidence of what has happened when men choose to come to sacred institutions with their own reason or wisdom, when a lot of it is in fact folly. It's almost like a little kid who has no understanding whatsoever what he's doing, trying to detonate a bomb, with all the high tech that's involved in it. They don't know anything about it, but they come to it and say, no, they can diffuse it. That's exactly how we are like when we come to marriage with our own understanding and choose not to come to God first. So the fourth one, deal with your past issues. Sometimes our past chases us into the future. Deal with your past issues. Do you have issues? Michael, please cue me when we've got just about 5 minutes more so that I know when to stop talking plenty.
Yes, please. Please.
5 minutes more, just let me know.
Yes, please.
All right. So deal with your past. Issues of abuse, self-esteem, former failed relationships. Each of them must be dealt with effectively. Deal with them conclusively. Deal with them so that you're in a state of healing that is so advanced that you don't bring your broken self into the marriage. So many of us come into our marriages broken, lost, with views about relationships that are totally warped. And no one told us, and that's our experience of life. How else would we have known? If you know you have these problems, you should not be getting married. You should be dealing with the problems. And very soon I'll talk to a concept that helps us look at that when I talk about being alone versus loneliness. I'll talk about that soon. But when you have these past issues, do you have issues with self-esteem? You're marrying someone who's a very confident person. How do you deal with that? Does the person's attitude make you feel bad about yourself? If you come into a relationship broken, you will bring all of those pains into the relationship and bring unnecessary stress into your marriage. So deal with them. Do you have failed relationships and how someone treated you in the past? Is that something that continues to sit on you? You need to work on that one. The fact that one man did that doesn't mean that all men will do that. The fact that a particular girl did this to you doesn't mean all girls are like that. The fact that because something happened to you in one relationship doesn't mean you bring that same relationship parameters into the next one. You may find someone who is actually the total opposite, and yet you are restraining them with all the hurts of the previous relationship and destroying it with your brokenness. Deal with your past. If you don't have the means to do it personally, find an expert. This is so important. It is worth sitting with a therapist to deal with. Someone told me that African men, we don't do therapy. Please, This is one of the times when, if you've got those problems, sit with someone. It helps you reflect, helps you understand at least where you are at before you venture into taking someone else into that space. What you don't want to do is to bring someone you profess love to into a place where they will be horrified and totally destroyed because of all the things that still continue to haunt you from your past. So deal with your past. Finish the work you started. And I said I was going to speak about it in the next. So point 5, being alone versus loneliness. And I want to take the reading here from, I think it is Genesis 2. I'll try and find it before the end of the conversation. Genesis 2. And this is where God has created Adam, and he has brought all the animals for him to name them. And Adam names them male and female. He sees that there are 2 of a kind. And then he notices that he's the only one of his kind. But it didn't prompt Adam to go to God to say, God, I think we have a problem here. I notice everything is 2, but there's just 1 of me. Could you fix it? There's a problem here. I thought, no. Adam felt complete. He felt total. He felt wholesome. He felt, this is how the Creator made me, and I'm good. I'm enough. He didn't even understand the concept of a female. Eve was a total revelation to him. He was in this space where he felt, I am doing my best work at this point in time as keeper of Eden. That's the job I've been appointed. I am going to continue to do it. I am enough. He didn't feel lonely. You understand? So when God, it is God who sees him. And God had already pronounced his creation good. Don't forget. So there was nothing wrong with it. God could have easily figured a way out. But when God saw Adam's completeness, he just came to him and he said, oh, wow, can you imagine if I gave him somebody to just complete him? To finish up in excellence, in perfection, this thing I have done. Let me just introduce a spark into the whole thing. I believe God was a genius to have created women, and all the amazing things women are. He wanted to introduce it into this life that was already complete and wholesome. And so he says, it is God who noticed it and said, it is not good that he is alone. When God said that, he was not talking about something wrong. God was looking at a more perfect state, a more extraordinary form of completion when he brought Eve into the picture. Adam was doing well, and then God brings Eve. Adam was fulfilling his God-ordained mission when God brought Eve into the picture. Adam was not lonely. Adam was not singing R&B songs about how imperfect his life was. Adam was chill. He was good. But when he saw Eve, the guy burst into poetry, became an instant poet. Bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. This guy had never seen anything that beautiful. It was just added perfection and not loneliness that brought about Eve. It's so important that we understand this, because so much of our brokenness we take into our relationship is coming from loneliness and not being alone. And this is a beautiful concept that Pastor Ketelo totally kills. If you ever want to go into it, go look for his sermon, The Tale of Being Alone and Loneliness. The Tale of Being Alone and Loneliness. You would be extremely blessed, because lonely guys have got incredible vibes and rap. They'll tell you how they'll cross an ocean for you, how they'll take a slice of the moon for you, how they died because you didn't see them, how life is so incomplete without you. And yes, ladies, you love to hear things like that. But that's a dangerous person. When you meet anyone telling you things like that, run in the opposite direction. That's a lonely man looking for you to fix his heart. And it is impossible. You cannot fix someone who's lonely. If you are personally lonely at this time, this is not the time to look for someone to marry. You go to God first. God needs to fix your heart first. Let God fix your heart. And when He's fixed your heart, and you are now alone, complete in the pursuit of your God-given mission, you can then ask Him to give you your Eve. All right. I could go on for the rest of the hour on just that topic alone. It's something that hit me very hard between the eyes. That I realized my poor wife suffered from marrying a very lonely man. So be very careful. For if you've not married yet and this is where you are at, you are feeling lonely, come to God first. Ask Him to make you complete. Be alone. Alone here meaning that you are not without. You are not insufficient. You are excited. You are contented being single. You are pursuing what God has asked you to do. Number 6, own your courtship. When we go to Genesis 24:58, Rebecca, when she was asked by her father, would you travel with this man Eliezer to meet a man called Isaac, whom you've never met? All we know is that he's your cousin. And his father, he left this place many years ago. They'll probably tell him 1 or 2 things about how Abraham, he was some kind of guy. He's got some small qualities of lying. So be expecting that this guy he can lie small. Yeah, he might be fine because his mother was very pretty and all of that thing. They'll tell you all of these things, but seriously, she had not met this guy. But Rebecca didn't say, oh, because I don't really know, you let us go and then we'll see. No, she took ownership of the courtship. She said, I will go and meet him. She committed long before she met Isaac that I will be wife to this Isaac. Many of us in our courtship period, it's like we are going for a ride and we are the passenger. Ladies and guys alike. Some women are a lot more forward and are very serious, and they begin to tell you, I like you and all of that one. Then you say, oh, I'm testing to see. No, please. If you are courting, and please, I'm talking about those who are courting. I'm not talking about just dating. I'm saying you are courting. You know that this is going towards marriage. Own your space in the courtship. Own your place. Don't be a passenger. Ask questions. Where do you live? What do you do for a living? Who are your partners? Where do you work? Who's your employer? How much do you earn? Ask the question. There's nothing wrong with it. It's your right. What do you want to do when we are married? Oh, well, I'd like for you to stay at home when the children come. Hey, me, I'm a career woman. I don't understand that one. Oh, really? Why don't? But if you stayed at home, this is what will happen for you. You have those conversations. Don't go and be a passenger. Own those conversations. Don't go in and then a few years later say, oh, but when you met me, this is not how I was. No. Have the conversations. Have the right conversations. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. Don't be shocked by the things later when you have not asked any questions. Have a conversation. I want 5 kids. No, I want only 1. Can you do a compromise? Maybe 3. Ina is laughing. No, I sorry. I want 10 kids. No, I want 2. Then you have a compromise. No, but have the conversation. Don't wait to get into it, and then you're having big fights over things that you should have agreed on long before you even took the walk down the aisle. Number 7, Michael, remind me if I'm 5 minutes time.
Yes, please.
Just tell me.
Yes, please.
Number 7, emotional intelligence, extremely critical. I realize that it's a problem. I don't know anything. I don't know. I'm tempted to say it's a very Ghanaian thing. I noticed that in Ghana, many people do things without any consideration for you are driving and yeah, you are not going anywhere, but maybe someone is rushing to the airport. So can you be more efficient on the road? It's as simple as that. The fact that you might be enjoying a space, but that's not what's happening with the person next to you. And that you actually put out your mental feelers, just like the insect does, to find out what's happening in your environment. You are talking to your wife, and she's saying, okay, okay, okay. And it doesn't occur to you that the okay doesn't mean okay. Okay, no. There's a lot in that okay. That okay is loaded. If they were to put it on a scale, it will weigh more than 300 kilograms. You need to step back and say, she's saying okay, but it's not okay. Emotional intelligence is being able to put yourself in other people's shoes to understand whether they are enjoying the experience you are giving them or they are in. You know, you go on a date with a young lady, and typically Accra is a very hot place, but maybe you decided to go in some Hamatan, or some rain is coming, so some plenty wind is blowing. Meanwhile, she stepped out that evening because she thought it was going to be a warm, sultry evening with some spaghetti top. Please, always carry a jacket or something so that you can be the gentleman and put it on her shoulder. Carry an extra handkerchief so that if she needs it, you can offer it. But emotional intelligence requires you to put yourself in the other person's shoe, and it's critical. You can't have a healthy relationship if you don't understand what the other person may be going through. So if you don't know anything about it, read about it. Right now, YouTube is a treasure trove of so much information. Play it, listen to it. Listen about emotional intelligence at work, at the office space. It's not something just for marriage. You can use it everywhere in your life. And it makes you considered, people will see you as a person who's sensitive, who's empathetic. We use those terms for people who are emotionally intelligent. Make it something you learn about. If you don't know anything about it, read up on it. It can be taught, it can be learned. Please take time to learn about emotional intelligence. Number 8 is just borrowing from something that we talked about earlier on. Move on from past relationships. Don't enter a new relationship with someone while the embers of the old affection still burn. Bring closure to the old before you begin the new. Get past your past relationships. Don't, you started to court Amma. Amma decided that you were not the one she wants to court, that she found someone better. That's her loss. Move on. But make sure that it's totally closed. Don't play this dangerous game. I'm hearing a lot of young people are playing this revenge romance. You know, Amma said no, so you're going to go to Akosia so that Akosia will make Amma jealous. You know, this madness. Or Kojo was supposed to, you wanted to marry Kojo. Kojo is being slack, so you go out with Kofi. Kojo, maybe he's got POP. He wanted to say it, but when he saw you going with Kofi, he decided that he to, okay, then he's going to start. Then you start playing these funny games. No. If you've got any entanglements, get over them before you get into a relationship. These things can totally kill your marriage. They can destroy them. It can be like acid, like toxin in your marriage. Kill those past relationships before you start anything new. If you haven't gotten over someone, get over the person before you start anything new. Some people say, no, I'm using a new relationship to help me get over the past. It doesn't work like that. Number 9, individuals must understand the love language that works for them. So, yes, we've talked about temperaments, but what's your love language? In the early days when we got married, one of the things that I struggled with was one of Ina's love languages was service, and I totally missed it somehow. And I did a very poor job on that. And so you could say I love you 100 times, but if you didn't come with service, how could you? It's almost like what Bible asks: show me your faith without your works. You know, if you really love someone, you will not let them carry a heavy burden alone and not be there with them. For some people too, Charlie, they need to see the flowers, the cards. They love the whole wooing process, repeated, 365 days in a year. If you've got that kind of partner, you need to get adept at using that love language. Don't be using your love language on the person and be shocked that the person is not responding. You understand? So maybe you like when the person says, maybe you like a lot of affection. So you think that when you are showing affection, then everything should be hunky-dory. And then you get offended that the other person does not feel loved. And then when the person tells you that you don't love me anymore, then it becomes drama, World War III. No, learn what their love language is so that you can communicate better in your love. If yours is affection, share it. Tell the person, no, I love a lot of affection. I love it when you kiss me. I love it when you hold my hand in public. I love it when, you pet me or something like that. Don't hide it. Share it. But understand what the temperaments are together with the love language. When you know the temperaments and understand the love language, it really is magic. Finally, count the cost. Reflection number 10, count the cost. You must know that marriage comes with cost. And this is a tie-up on the point around knowledge, understanding what God is asking us to do, understand what marriage really is about. So marriage is not trial and error, the way we understand it in the Adventist church. And generally, not forget the Adventist church, any Christian who wants to marry, it's not a trial and error thing. It's not a thing you test and then you put aside. You make a commitment for life. You are there when times are bad. You are there when times are good. You are there if it doesn't suit you. You are there if it suits you. You don't negotiate divorce easily. You are there for the long haul. You can be trusted to be there for the long haul. It means there will be times in your life when it is miserable, but you also know that that misery will last forever. And sometimes it sounds and feels like it's lasting forever. But what did you sign up for? And what did you come in to do? If when you came in, it's now difficult and things are not like what you planned they would be, what are you not doing right? How do you want God to deal with this? Have you asked God to help you with this? And marriage is not easy. It's so important that we understand all of that before we go into it. Very often, all people see of marriage is the milestones, The couple say, oh, they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. Everybody goes, wow, wow, wow. Those 20 years were not easy, eh? You see them and the children are all grown up. They're like, wow, oh, me too. Please, the number of diapers that have been changed, the number of fights that have been had, the near walkouts on that relationship, the cold shoulders and the weeks of no talking. The pains are many, and this is not to frighten anybody. It's just to say that marriage is a beautiful thing, but it requires hard work. And Jesus likens it to the relationship between him and his love for his church. And Jesus didn't go through anything easy for his church. He gave his life for his church. And members of the church are being asked to give their life in return. Guys, marriage is not easy. So budget for the worst while you hope and pray for the best. And I assure you, with God, the best is possible. If you will play by God's rules and you will live by his rules, you will find marriage to be something made only possible by heaven. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elder. We are very grateful for that very insightful presentation. At this moment, we would like to take a few questions from the panels and from our participants. So if you have any question, kindly feel free to raise up your hand or send it in the chat box. We've received some questions beforehand and would like to go through those first. So the first question we've been asked is this is the elder Nyamakratete. Please, what are your thoughts about the older folk pressuring men and women whom they deem ready for marriage on the basis of age, financial independence? It says, "Yeah, now worry, now watch it." So, what's your thoughts on that whole notion?
Sorry, I was mute. We are born in a very interesting culture which encourages things like that and allows the elderly people to do things like that. But please, when you get married and you are dealing with your issues, those people will be nowhere. Generally, they are not around to support. Very few times do I see those people encouraging you to get married, coming around and say, "Oh, let's help you." Most people don't know what the young people go through during the pain in the marriage. So when you want to do this for you. Yes, you're financially independent, but there are some other things we talked about just today. Make sure you've gone through that checklist. Make sure you are really ready. Marriage is not a walk in the park. It's not just about the photo shoots. In fact, the photo shoots are not the marriage. That's the wedding. So start with being properly ready. Ready in every aspect of marriage. And the funny thing about it is that you're never fully ready. But there are a number of things that you must get right, and we just talked about them. So yes, you're financially independent. Those are the right things. But there's emotional independence. There's emotional intelligence. There's maturity, emotional maturity, that you must be at, in order to get married. And so it's fine for them. Allow them to do that. Smile at it. Move on. Don't make that what informs your decision to marry. Ask yourself the hard questions before you come into marriage. Marriage is not it's a very personal commitment between yourself and your partner. And when you are in it and you are fighting for it, most people are asleep and don't understand what's happening in your marriage. So allow them to make all the commentary, but own your space and own your marriage, own your commitment to it. So take the nice social encouragement, the social-cultural encouragement, which is Ghanaians, in this part of Africa, we love our marriages. It sustains our communities. So people like to give that kind of encouragement. It's fine. For me, I hear it and it really just washes off my shoulder. I mean, and then you go and ask yourself the hard questions in the room. Am I ready? When you've answered those questions, you can step out and say you're ready to marry.
Thank you so much, Elder. You mentioned something about financial independence. Another question that's come through is, what are some of the financial considerations to make before considering marriage?
So make sure you're independent, financially independent. You cannot go into marriage while depending on someone else's paycheck or largesse to sustain your life. Many people go there thinking, "Oh, this my uncle, as you may see, will be giving me some small money, so I'll be able to manage things. My father's family." No. At the point that you're about to marry, financially, you should be independent, as in, I pay for my own meals, I pay for my life. It's not dependent on someone else. I am fully dependent on myself to make my decisions about my life. You cannot bring someone else into that space if you are depending on someone else's largesse. Okay. Another thing that's really important that I'd really like to put forward there are many people who think it's cool, and please forgive me, I'm going to be taking a bash at one or two cultural norms, and it's not because I disrespect it. It probably works for a lot of people, but it's very uncomfortable for many couples, and I've seen this so many times. If you are living with your parents and you're a guy, move out, even if it's one bedroom, even if it's a garage you can rent, move out. Be alone. Let your wife come into a space that is hers fully. Don't bring, look, your parents may be wonderful, extraordinary, kind, and all of that. But over time, that relationship gets tested. It's best to bring her, and I'm speaking to guys here, bring her into a space that is wholly hers. If you can afford only one bedroom, as long as he loves you with your one bedroom, do that. Don't say, oh, but my father's got a big land. They'll be separate. They'll be in front. We'll be at the back. Our lives, no, leave. So for me, the big things are financially, you can feed yourself and can afford to feed another person. And at least you're on your way to provide for your family when they come. You're not now running charity donation shows when the family starts to come together. Or every time it's time for rent, then the whole world hears about your woes. No. So you must be financial, as in be able to take care of yourself. And you know, people are watching the Joneses talk about taking care of themselves. The fact that someone lives in a 3-bedroom house when they were getting married doesn't mean you should also do that. Find your own space. Suitability. What is it that works for the two of you? For maybe you've decided that because you are planning for something better, you want to live in a chamber and hall for now. Don't let anyone judge your decision about that. Live in your chamber and hall. You've decided you want to rent in maybe far, like almost near Winneba, because that's what you can afford. It's going to be difficult. It means you're waking up in the morning. Please, don't let anyone judge your decisions. Between the two of you, does it work? Fine, you're good to go. Thank you.
Please, another question we received. Thank you so much, Elder. We're very grateful.
Sorry,
Another
Michael,
question.
just before you bring the question, Ina just queued me and said, how about the woman? Ina, you want to share something about it? You know, so for the woman, it's becoming ordinary in Ghana, this whole dependence syndrome. I don't know where it came from. Where people feel that because someone is marrying them, then their financial woes become that person's own. I mean, look, if their families' woes and their personal financial woes become the man's own. Look, if that's the arrangement and the guy is cool with it, who am I to interfere? It's suitable for the two of you. I'm an outsider. It's not my business. But as much as possible, if you come to that relationship independent, you bring a lot more gravitas to the relationship. It shouldn't matter that you are look, the fact that maybe, let's say, I'm a mechanic and I'm a school teacher. That's not what I'm talking about. Come to the relationship able to care for yourself. As a lady, be able to care for yourself, not dependent on whether the guy has it. If today the guy doesn't have it, I remember when we were preparing for our wedding. By the time, because we had decided not to take any help from our parents, and by the time I was paying some of the bills for the marriage, I was flat broke. Flat broke. I lived off Ina's salary for more than a year. Literally. I just go for an ATM card and use it like it was mine. Nobody knew. But my wife was the one who was caring for me. You understand? So it brings a certain kind of equity to the relationship. Don't come into it dependent. It's not right. But then circumstances in life are challenging everywhere. If you're even coming to it in that state, aspire to move out of it. Aspire to contribute to the relationship. You know, increasingly it's becoming the norm, and it's so wrong. What that is generating, and I've seen this in so many relationships, a lot of disrespect for our women. You know, it's like for them, all that they are there for is just to provide fiscal comfort, and everything else. It brings a lot of disrespect from a lot of men who are not mature enough to understand that that's not how it's supposed to work. So that independence cuts both ways, not just the guy. Sorry, Michael, you're going to say something.
Thank you so much, Elder. Thank you so much. Another question we received is that when do you inform your parents about the intention to get married so that it doesn't become a surprise to them? So when do you appropriately inform them?
So one of the interesting things that when I don't know what kind of relationship we have with your parents, but even when you're dating, they are the ones they should be able to be saying, this is going to work, this is not going to work. Then when you start courtship, they would know. So somewhere where dating becomes courtship, you are the person you're courting. When you start courting, you mean that person is now, you're talking fiancé now. That's the time to tell your parents. That's the time to inform them that you see this lady who's my friend, we want to move a step further towards marriage. We are looking at marriage. Then you're giving them fair notice a long time ahead. You understand? Bring the lady home, meet your parents. And I don't know what the situation is at home. I can understand that sometimes it might be a little tricky. But if the situations are reasonably normal, at the time dating becomes courtship, your parents should be brought into it. Your parents see things that other people don't see. Your parents understand things about you that you don't understand about yourself. If you've got parents who are trustworthy, they would add value to the relationship. If you've got a rocky relationship with your parents and this might be adding, petrol to fire and all of that one, I can understand that. But you must have at least some mentors or guardians who you can bring into the relationship to take a look at it and tell you truth to your face. That's what our parents are supposed to do for us. So if you don't have that, find parent figures who can do that for you as early as possible. Many people don't realize it. And I hear all these sad stories about people who become so brokenhearted because the man walked away at the time they were going to marry, or that they printed the cards and the guy said no more. Believe you me, that's the time to actually go to God in praise and prayer and say, Father, I thank you for not putting me. Would you have rather found out after the marriage? Don't feel embarrassed. Marriage is so important and dangerous that if someone even has an iota of doubt and he expresses it even on the day of the marriage, you are better off canceling. I hope I am making sense. If there's even one iota, because by the time you even start year one, the doubt that to come in your mind is plenty. So if you're about to start and the person is expressing one iota of doubt, go back and think about it again. Let everybody be sure. Because this journey, you need people who are certain, mature, and determined that we will confront every challenge together.
Thank you so much, Elder. We're getting really positive feedback from the comment section. At this point, we'd like to open the floor for anyone who has any question or comments before we close. So if anyone has any question they want answered, we kindly ask you to raise your hand or possibly just unmute and ask your questions, please. All right, Peter Jumpo, please, you can go ahead.
Okay, I joined quite late, so I don't know if this has been raised about. Please, what is your view about people like maybe someone already has a child? How do you handle it? When you're dating someone with the intention of marrying who already has a child, how do you handle that? Thank you.
When you come to a relationship and you look, our world has so much wahala that these things should stop being issues. I've heard of people were, make sure baby, or Baba could, and the whole thing becomes like it's the end of the world, Armageddon. We should really come past all of that. Our world is just so difficult and rough. We should expect these kind of blended family things to happen, and these are things that. But important thing is, and vice versa, whether it's the lady or the man, these things happen. Yours is to find out the circumstances in which it happened, why it happened. It's not evidence of profligacy or someone who's just, all over the place. Once you understand the circumstances, you need to commit yourself to that child. That child cannot be her child. You can never make that comment and say, your son or that boy. If you love the mother, you must love her child completely. No exceptions to the rule. You marry fully everything that she is. You don't marry parts of who she is. It's the guy too. You came to the house, the man already had a daughter. Please don't become part of the statistics that make her Cinderella. She becomes your daughter. You are part of the story. You will do everything to win her, even though she doesn't trust you. You will do everything to make her your daughter, even though she doesn't give you even the time of day. Because you chose this man. And you can't choose parts of him. You can't choose parts of her. You choose everything. And the journey is not complete if you don't accept their children. Indeed, for some of these things, the journey is better when you become that father or mother that they needed, that they never found. So how do you treat this? Come to it, first of all, understand the circumstances that brought all of this about. Make sure you understand it fully so that you're never at a place where you are casting insinuations or casting aspersions about the circumstances of the birth. You understand? Because those could be things of pain or remorse for the person. And you don't want to stoke up pain from the person's past. What you want to do is you understand the circumstances and then you commit to be a part of that process. You cannot, I've heard of very sad stories where the person comes to the house and says, me, I'll marry you, but I don't want to see that your child is. So that child gets relegated to grandma or grand aunt and lives a separate life from that family. You're just stoking the flames for a very bitter end. So bring them together and be wife and mother or husband and father to these other children. Actually, where people have done this, yes, there are some painful stories, but generally a lot of them are very happy endings where they overcome the distrust for each other and find support that was long gone. Sometimes these stepchildren will do for you the things your own children will not even do for you. So go to it with a lot of prayer and thought and give your heart to it and let God bless.
Thank you so much, Elder. There's another question that's come through the chat. It says that my fiance and I are considering getting married, but his financial situation is not too good. And it's from a woman. I can fund the wedding or I can finance the wedding. Is it advisable to go ahead and do so?
I wish I knew who the guy was. Generally, I'd say, look, if you know this person and you know this person, it's not supposed to be a problem. But this is the kind of thing where if you don't if you don't allow, as the lady, if you don't allow this man to do this, you would forever steal from him. I don't know, there's just this delicate little thing about ego about men that And I'm not free of it. I'm just thinking about it from my very myopic eyes. But you'll be taking away from him something that's really important. He doesn't have to foot the whole bill, but give him the opportunity to raise up to half of it. Let him do his best to do it, because, and I don't know, and I wish I knew who the person was, because a lot of this depends on how mature this person is. So that then you can actually put this together. But if the person is not mature enough and you do this, you might be really having a very dangerous precedent that could not this thing. But then, like I said, it could also be an unfair assessment on a person who's extremely mature and who will do his best throughout the rest of the marriage to show you that he was worth that confidence and trust. So you want to really be sure. You want to be really sure you know this person. Unfortunately, human beings, you can't totally know people. You can start today and say, I love this person, and I'm just speaking facts here. And a few years later, it could be your worst enemy. So encourage him to step up. Help him to step up. Help him to step up. Help him to find his place. Help him to and be ready to do a wedding that is not probably to your standard and taste. You know, let me if I were in this kind of situation, ask him what he can afford, what he can sponsor to the best of his ability. Let him come up with a number. Let him say, okay, I can't afford more than 10,000. Then you can say, okay, I'll match it with another 10,000 and do a wedding within that budget. In Ghana, I know it's impossible, but it means that you're going to probably go to AMA, you're going to sign, you're going to have how they call this marriage, your marriage of your ordinance wedding, ordinance marriage, and wait for a time when both of you have the means to actually splurge, and then you can do something that, by all means, I know that without the photo shoot, it's totally empty for the ladies. Make your provision for your photo shoot, but do a very simple wedding that he can afford, that he can hold himself to. You can support with the little things just to add up. You can match whatever he brings up, and go forward together. And at a later date, I've seen so many people. I know a guy who, when they started out, he could not. In fact, the girl's parents disowned her because she was marrying him. It's a very famous story. I can't tell you the name, but at the time that you were married, the guy could barely afford. Literally, they had to go and live in his. This was a lady whose parents were like, the father was an ambassador for many years. Man was coming from a town that we cannot find on the map of Ghana. And he was a teacher of no means. He had nothing. He had his wedding in a small Pentecostal church that, the whole total cost of the thing, that woman could afford it many times over. And they went ahead and did it. Parents of the girl didn't attend. They were so disappointed in their daughter, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward 20 years later, this guy is probably one of the largest suppliers. I'm not going to say it because the moment I say it, you probably will put it. But they're doing very well. And they had a second marriage. On their 20th anniversary, they had a marriage to rival marriages. You see, the marriage is different from the wedding. So once you understand that and allow him to own this, let him own it. And you can match it, you can support it, but don't pay for the wedding. There's always going to be something that you're going to be accused of at a time when things you don't want to hear will be said. So whatever it is, what you want to do now is just accept that you have a much smaller wedding than you typically could afford, but this is the man you've chosen. You stand by him, help him grow, become a better man. On the financial, he probably is a great guy I'm talking about on the financial side. And then when you guys both have what you feel is at a place, you can have something that You can go to the Bahamas, have a wedding, you can go to Akosombo and do your destination marriage or whatever. But for now, let him be the one who pays for it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Uncle Elder Nyamakretete. We're very grateful for your time. I don't know if there are any more questions or comments. If not, would kindly ask Auntie Oyo Flores Quartet to please pray for us so that we can end our session tonight. And kindly stay tuned for the review of next week's topic during the week. So please kindly stay tuned for next week's topic. But thank you so much, Elder, once again. I'll kindly ask Auntie Oyo to share the prayer for us. Seems like Auntie Florence is not in a position to pray for us. So we'd ask Katie, please, if you can, to share a quick closing prayer for us. All right. I think they're gonna getting them to pray, so I'll just pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today and the opportunity we've had to share these valuable insights. We pray that your spirit to be with us, help that those who are preparing for marriage would be able to learn from these. And for those who are not yet ready or nowhere near that stage, you'd help us to keep these things in mind, even as we go on our life journey. Just continue to be with us. Bless Elder Nyamakretete and his family for making time to speak with us this evening. May your spirit continue to be with us, guide us and direct us, and show us a favor and your grace. Pray back in Jesus' name with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining. God bless
you very much. Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Living below in this so sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford, striving alone to face temptation sore. Where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Oh, where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul. Needing a friend to help me in the end. Brother, won't you tell me where could I go but to the Lord? Neighbors are kind, I love them, everyone. We get along in sweet accord. But when my soul needs manna